We're here back in the Fantasy Bar, sixth place for you for the divisional round of the playoffs on Fanduel and Draftkings, including a near minimum price play on DK. I'm looking at this weekend, a running back quarterback pairing I am eyeing up. Some guys we can go back to after busting last week. And of course, my favorite play of the week. Who is it? Belly up to the Fantasy Barn. Find out. Welcome in, guys. Divisional round here. Final 8 teams left in the NFL playoffs, and we have narrowed things down to 6 of my favorite plays on FanDuel and DraftKings. Thank you, as always, for stopping by and checking out the video. Now, before we get into my favorite plays of the week, a couple things. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Get notified when these videos are coming out. NFL is wrapping up, but still have a betting video. A couple of my favorite bets in the weekend coming out. NBA videos a couple times a week. So make sure you subscribe, get notified when these videos are released. And of course, hit that thumbs up button. Don't forget scoresandodds.com/beer for everything sports betting. All right, let's get into plays here for this weekend. Looks like a fun set of games here. 2 gamers, 4 gamers, whatever you want. Here we go with some of my favorite plays I am eyeing up. Let's start at the wide receiver position. A guy who busted last week, I want to go back to wide receiver T. Higgins of the Bengals. Now, Higgins was very highly owned last week, was in a great spot against the Raiders. Turned out it was Jamar Chase you needed, Tyler Boyd finding the end zone, hell, even CJ Uzomah having a decent game here. So you're going to have some people that bail on T. Higgins, but we know this guy's ceiling is right up there with any wide receiver on this slate. In fact, over the last couple games of the season, we saw his ceiling, games of 26, 31, and 46 DraftKings points. So we're talking about some GPP winning scores here. And this matchup about as good as it gets here. Of the remaining playoff teams, Tennessee has allowed the most fantasy points to the wide receiver position. In fact, when you look at the entire season on a whole, second most fantasy points allowed of any team in the entire league here. So Chase, obviously the headliner, on a nice roll right now with Joe Burrow. Let's take this ownership discount we're going to get this weekend on T. Higgins. All right, let's go to the running back position. A guy I think is still way too cheap. That's Devin Singletary of the Bills. So looking at these prices, I mean, under 6K on DraftKings, just a tick over 7 on FanDuel makes Singletary an easy play if you're playing cash games, even in tournaments, and even at elevated ownership. A guy that I want a ton of exposure to here this week against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Bills on an absolute roll right now, 27 or more points now in 6 straight games. We saw them dismantle the New England Patriots last week. And sure, they haven't played the best teams, okay, but the numbers have certainly been there for Devin Singletary, averaging over 25 DraftKings points per game over the last couple weeks. So whether the competition's been great or not, this is a guy getting the ball a ton in a very good offense, in a good matchup here with the Chiefs. Second most fantasy points allowed of the remaining teams here in the playoffs. So we know there's going to be points in this game. I think Buffalo actually wins this game, but Devin Singletary going to be a big reason why, and just too cheap on both FanDuel and DraftKings. All right, let's go to the tight end position. We actually have a lot of options on the high end, but we're going to go with George Kittle of the Niners. So you want to go Travis Kelce, no issues with that. Obviously, Gronk, we know, has been a monster with some of the injuries they're dealing with there, but Kittle, the guy that likely gets forgotten here for a couple reasons. First of all, those other guys have been on a roll. He has not. He's kind of in that middle ground of pricing where people are either paying all the way up or they're likely saving. So you get a few reasons why I think Kittle could go underlooked, but mainly that recency bias. Now, he has not been great over the last month, been under 10 DraftKings points. But let's not forget how good this guy is and what kind of ceiling he has in Green Bay. When we look at fantasy points allowed, 11th most over the course of the season, second most with the remaining playoff teams. Also allowed 8 touchdowns to this position, 6th most in the entire NFL this season. So prices ticked down a little bit. Let's not forget about George Kittle here in a matchup they may be throwing more than they'd like to. Great prices here for George Kittle. All right, let's go to the other side of that game, a little correlation with my favorite value play in the weekend. That's Randall Cobb of the Packers. So all signs pointing to Randall Cobb being back in that lineup for Green Bay this week. And I know there's a ton of competition here at the secondary receiver. We know Devontae Adams is going to get his. You still have Lazard who's starting to come on. You still have MVS. But I think Randall Cobb is going to be a big part of the offense here. We know how much Aaron Rodgers loves to utilize this guy. We know how much upside he has, especially at that $3,100 on DraftKings. It's not going to take a lot to get him over that number. In fact, smash on that number. Now let's look back. It's been a while since we've seen Randall Cobb, but the last 5 games that he played, before the injuries. Saw 5 targets in 3 of those 5 games. So again, Rodgers loves to throw to this guy. We know that. San Francisco, over the course of the season, bottom half in fantasy points allowed. 2 wide receivers, bottom half in receptions, receiving yards, touchdowns. So, a middle of the road secondary at best here for San Francisco. Green Bay, much better at home. In fact, undefeated at home. And Cobb makes a big splash back in that lineup, and tough to beat this $3,100 price point. All right, let's go back to the running back position. Another guy that may go ignored because of the matchup. That's Cam Akers of the Rams. Now we know the story with Tampa Bay. We've heard it all season long. Target the secondary, target the passing game. Well, the numbers have kind of flipped here. They haven't been as dreadful against wide receivers and quarterbacks, but everyone's going to be on Stafford Kupp, and I have no issue with that here in this matchup. That is the path of least resistance against this Tampa Bay team. But let's talk about Cam Akers for a minute. 18 touches last week against Arizona, and what a story this guy has been. Nobody expected him back, looking better than any of us could have expected after that injury. And I'm expecting the touch count to go even higher here. He handled those 18 touches. He looked good. I'm expecting him to take over as the primary back here, and Sony Michel kind of mixing in to give him a breather. And Tampa, like we mentioned, against running backs of the remaining playoff teams, they actually allowed the most fantasy points over the last 4 weeks of the season here. So yes, they are very good against the run, but this is not an impossible matchup here for Cam Akers. Prices are great here in the mid-5s on both sides. Don't be afraid to pull the trigger here against this Tampa Bay defense. All right, it's time to take a look at my favorite play for divisional round of the playoffs. Before we do that, we want to continue our Beast of the Week contest. Free to play, easy to play. All you got to do, get in the comment section right below the video and guess fantasy points on Fanduel for my favorite play of the week. The closest guess is going to win themselves a free month of RotoGrinders Premium. Chance to check everything out behind the scenes, absolutely free. So without further ado, let's wrap this baby up. My favorite play for the divisional round. You know him as the Beast of the Week. All right, Beast time. We still owe you a quarterback here, and I am shooting for ceiling here. I am going with Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills, this week's Beast of the Week. Now, a lot of great quarterbacks on this slate. You can make the argument for Patrick Mahomes at home, Tom Brady, Stafford, like we talked about, even Aaron Rodgers. I don't think any of those guys possess the ceiling that Josh Allen does here. So, yeah, you're going to pay a little bit more. But we're talking about a guy that has 35, 40, 45-point upside in this matchup. We've already seen him approach 40 Draftkings points in this same matchup. These two teams played earlier this season. Josh Allen, 315 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, added 59 more rushing yards and another touchdown in that game, and been on an absolute tear here. We talked about it with Devin Singletary, and yes, I like the pairing of Allen and Singletary and gobbling up all of those Buffalo Bills touchdowns. So a little different than what most Bills are going to look like with Josh Allen, which I am fine with. That's what we are searching for on this slate. But Allen, even against some of the bad teams that he's played, plus the numbers he put up against that vaunted New England defense, averaging over 31 Draftkings points per game over the last 6. So yes, expensive. We found you some value here. Josh Allen, the first guy I want to pay up for on this slate, making him easily my favorite play of the weekend and this week's Beast of the Week. All right, guys, that'll wrap it up with a look at 6 of my favorite plays here on Fanduel and Draftkings for this divisional round weekend of games. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the picks and the video. Let me know in the comment section, who's your favorite play in the weekend? Who's your Beast of the Week? Sound off there and let us know, of course, fantasy points for Josh Allen on Fanduel for your shot at some RotoGrinders Premium. If you have any other comments, questions, feedback, please hit me up there in that comment section. And don't forget, scoresandodds.com/beer for all of your sports betting needs. That link right there in the description of the video. For RotoGrinders.com, I am Beer saying salut, guys. Best of luck this weekend. Thank you so much for watching the video, and we are out.
Hey, thanks for checking out our videos. If you want more expert advice on DraftKings, FanDuel, or any other daily fantasy sports, make sure you check out the current videos playlist